She stood before the piano, her gown white as frost, her hair pale as moonlight. Her eyes held that same silver hue, unearthly and calm. Adrian's voice caught in his throat. You can't be real." She smiled faintly. "Real enough for those who dream." He took a hesitant step forward. "You are Lydia Ravenshade." "I was," she said softly. "Once. But the house keeps what it loves, and it loved me too much to let me leave." Her words were like the touch of silk, soft, sad, inevitable. Adrian's pulse quickened. "What do you want of me?" She tilted her head. "You carry its blood. The house has waited. It remembers." For what? For its heart to return. Before he could speak again, she moved, not walking, but gliding, to the piano. Her hands, pale as bone, rested upon the keys. She played a melody he knew instantly, his mother's lullaby. The sound filled the room, fragile and beautiful. The fire dimmed, the air thickened. Shadows gathered around her form like petals closing around a flower. When the final note fell, she turned toward him. "Find me," she whispered, "below the 13th step." Then she vanished. The room was empty once more. Only the echo of her words remained. Adrian spent the rest of the night in restless wakefulness. The phrase gnawed at him, below the 13th step. When dawn came, pale and uncertain, he took a lantern and returned to the cellar stairs. He counted as he descended, 1, 2, 3, until he reached 13. There, at the edge of the step, he saw what he had missed before, a faint crack running along the stone. He knelt, pressing his fingers against it. The stone gave way with a soft click, revealing a narrow opening. Cold air rose from within, carrying the scent of earth and lilac. He lowered the lantern. Below lay a second stairway, descending deeper into darkness. For a moment, fear held him still. Then he began to descend. The air grew heavier, the darkness thicker. The walls narrowed, closing in until his shoulders brushed the stone. The passage ended abruptly in another chamber, smaller, circular, and filled with mirrors. Dozens of them. They covered the walls, their glass darkened by age, yet each faintly reflected. As he raised the lantern, his own image multiplied, 100 Adrians staring back, their faces pale and hollow. At the center stood another mirror, larger than the rest, its frame wrought of black iron in the shape of twisting ravens. In its surface, he saw not his own reflection, but the image of Lydia. She stood upon a staircase of mist, her hand extended toward him. "The house remembers," she whispered, "and now, so must you." The mirror rippled, like water disturbed by wind. Adrian stepped closer, and for the briefest instant, he saw behind her the faint outline of another figure, a man. On knee, his face sharp, his eyes dark, his smile unmistakably his own. It was himself. He stumbled back, breath catching. The lantern flickered, then died. Darkness, and within it, the soft, deliberate toll of a clock, not 12, but 13. For a moment, he could not tell if he still dreamed. The scent of lilac clung to the air, and the faint tolling of a bell, 13, always 13, reverberated through the marrow of the castle. The candle he had lit hours ago was now a stub, guttering beside the bed, its flame shivering as though afraid. He rose, his heart still pounding with the image of the mirror. Lydia's face, serene and sorrowful, and that other reflection, his own likeness reaching from within the glass. The storm outside had passed, yet the fog remained. Through the window, he could see nothing of the moor, only the endless pale drift of mist pressing against the glass as though trying to look in. Somewhere within the house, the piano began to play again. Slow, hesitant. Each note, a drop of cold water in the silence. He dressed quickly, the air in his chamber so cold that his breath smoked. When he opened the door, he found the corridor dim, the sconces unlit. The music came from below, deep within the foundation. He descended once more, the same path that had drawn him before. The stairs seemed longer now, each step heavier, as if the castle itself were stretching, reshaping to accommodate his descent. At the 13th step, he paused. The secret opening he had uncovered remained ajar. The air that rose from it was colder than before, threaded with the scent of damp earth and something faintly sweet, like decaying roses. Lantern in hand, he descended. The narrow stairway led into a cavernous chamber unlike anything built by human architects. The walls were smooth, curving inward like the ribs of a vast creature. Vines of iron and quartz shimmered faintly in the lantern light. In the center stood the mirror, towering and black, its frame crawling with sculpted ravens and vines. Before it rose a low stone dais, inscribed with words worn almost smooth by time. Adrian brushed the dust away with his sleeve and traced the faint carving. In blood we are bound, in reflection we endure. He straightened, his pulse quickening. Lydia, he whispered, if you are real, show yourself. The air thickened. The lantern flame bowed inward, bending as though toward an unseen presence. Then, slowly, the glass of the mirror began to glow. Mist curled across its surface, silver and alive, and within it a shape took form. A woman in white, her eyes calm, her hands clasped before her. You returned, she said softly. Her voice was like the sound of snow falling. Adrian took a step forward. Tell me what this place is. It is the heart of Ravenshade. The house was raised upon my grave. Your grave. She nodded. I died here, though not as others died. My brother, Alaric Ravenshade, would not allow the family to perish. He bound me to the stone, and through me the blood endures. Nay, Adrian stared at her, the chill sinking deeper into his bone. You mean the family lives through you? Yes, and through all who bear the mark of Ravenshade. We are one blood, one reflection. Each hair inherits not only the estate, but the shadow behind it. He stepped closer, anger rising through the dread. Then why summon me? Why whisper in my sleep? Why the 13th bell? Her expression softened. Because the circle is broken. The mirror weakens. The house cannot survive without the heart. And the aromaty and a neuronap. And that heart is me. She smiled, and in that smile was both sorrow and tenderness. It was always you. The mirror rippled. For an instant, he saw not her, but a boy, himself, years younger, running through the halls, laughing. Behind the boy, a woman watched, smiling. His mother, Eleanor, Day. Adrian's breath caught. Mother, Lydia's form shimmered. She bore the burden before you. Through her, the house endured. But she sought to break the chain. When she died, Ravenshade began to starve. He shook his head. No, way. She was gentle. She loved this plate. Nanabori, what are you? What do chair? She loved you, and love is rebellion here. It weakens the binding. Lydia's gaze deepened. You feel it too, do you not? The walls listening, the stones breathing, the hunger beneath your skin. It is the house remembering itself through you. Adrian stepped back, trembling. If this is truth, then tell me how to end it. Lydia's expression flickered, as though the question pained her. To end it, the blood must break the mirror. But the mirror is the blood. You cannot destroy what you are. The lantern light wavered, throwing the chamber into motion. Shadows writhed along the walls, forming shapes, faces, hands, eyes opening and closing in silent rhythm. The air trembled with whispers, 100 voices murmuring his name. Adrian Ravenshade. He clutched the lantern tighter. Stop it! Stop! The voices swelled, then fell suddenly silent. The mirror darkened again, leaving only his own reflection, pale, trembling, eyes wide with fear. But as he watched, the reflection smiled. He dropped the lantern. It shattered upon the floor, oil spilling in bright, trembling pool. The flame sputtered, caught, then died. Darkness closed like a curtain. He woke on the floor, hours later, though he could not recall how he had fallen. The mirror loomed before him, inert once more. The air was heavy with the scent of smoke and damp stone. He climbed to his feet, his body aching. Above, faintly, he could hear the bells tolling the dawn. He stumbled up the stairs, through corridors that seemed subtly altered. The paintings upon the walls different. The patterns of the floor shifted. The castle itself felt alive, shifting its bones while he slept. In the main hall, the morning light poured weakly through the stained glass. Edmund was there, seated upon the stairs as though he had waited all night. His face was pale, drawn tight with worry. "My lord!" the steward exclaimed, rising unsteadily. "Where have you been? I searched every hall, I feared." Adrian waved him silent. "Tell me the truth, Edmund. You knew of this chamber." The old man's eyes darkened. "Yes, and I prayed you would never find it." "Why?" "Because it is not meant to be found by the living." Adrian's voice hardened. "Lydia Ravenshade spoke to me." Edmund's hand trembled. The road to Blackthorn Hill wound upward like a ribbon of ash beneath a shrouded sky. Mist pressed close upon the land, swallowing trees and stones alike, until even the world seemed to have forgotten its shape. Within this pall of silence moved a solitary carriage, its wheels whispering over the damp earth, its lanterns dim and flickering as though reluctant to pierce the gloom. Inside, Lord Adrian Ravenshade sat alone. His gloved hands held a letter, creased and yellowed. its wax seal long broken. The words upon it, penned in a hand he knew too well, were few yet heavy as tombstone. Come home, Adrian. Ravenshade needs you. The signature below, Edward Ravenshade, belonged to a man 5 months dead. Adrian's eyes lingered on the ink until it blurred. The candlelight threw a wavering glow across his face, revealing the fatigue carved into it. The high cheekbones of his lineage, the storm-gray eyes that never seemed entirely at rest. Outside, the world had turned spectral. The moor stretched endlessly, a sea of pale grasses moving like breath. The coachman's voice broke through the muffled silence. Beg pardon, my lord, but the fog thickens fast. Shall we seek shelter in the village? Adrian did not look up. No, and we ride on. I must reach Ravenshade before midnight. Die. The man hesitated, glanced at the sky, and urged the horses onward. The path narrowed as they climbed. The wind rose, carrying with it the scent of wet stone and something else, faint yet unmistakable, the musk of old iron, like blood long dry. Lightning flashed across the heavens, illuminating for an instant the outline of Ravenshade Castle, its towers black against the cloud. The sight struck Adrian with the chill of memory. Once, as a boy, he had played within those walls, chasing laughter through corridors that now surely held only dust. Yet even then, he had sensed the castle's unease, that quiet, watchful presence that no warmth could dispel. The coach wheels groaned as they reached the final bend. Then, there it was, the gate of Ravenshade. Iron bars, heavy and twisted with ivy, arched like ribs of a long-dead beast. 2 stone angels flanked the entrance, one headless, the other wingless. Between them, a crest weathered by centuries caught the glimmer of the storm. A black raven clutching a silver blade. Adrian stepped from the carriage, boots sinking into the sodden earth. The fog gathered close about him, curling like breath around his shoulders. For a moment he simply stood, listening. The moor was utterly still, yet he felt, absurdly perhaps, that the air itself waited for him. The gate creaked open without his touch. A shiver traced his spine. He turned to call for the coachman, but the man had already crossed himself and turned the horses back down the road. Adrian watched the lanterns disappear into the fog until only the whisper of wheels remained. Then he turned toward the castle. The great doors stood before him, carved oak, bound with iron. When he pressed his hand against them, they yielded as if expecting him. The hall of Ravenshade opened before him, vast, echoing, magnificent in its ruin. Cobwebs draped the chandeliers like funeral veils. Tattered banners hung from the vaulted ceiling, their colors long devoured by dust. Along the walls, portraits of his ancestors stared down with eyes that caught the candlelight strangely, as though some remnant of awareness lingered within their painted depths. "Welcome home, my lord." The voice came from the shadows. Adrian turned sharply. An old man stepped forward, a lantern trembling in his thin hand. "Ow!" His face was lined, his back slightly stooped, yet his bearing retained a certain dignity. "Edmund," Adrian murmured, "you're still here." The steward bowed his head. "I keep the fires burning, my lord, though some nights I think they burn for no one." Adrian's gaze swept the hall again. "My father, he died here?" In his study. Quietly, it is said. Edmund's tone faltered, as though the word quietly carried another meaning altogether. He spoke your name before the end. Adrian said nothing. He felt the weight of the castle settling around him, pressing into his very breath. Somewhere, far off, a clock began to toll the hour. When the final chime faded, another sound drifted through the silence. Soft, hesitant, yet unmistakable. The notes of a piano, echoing faintly from the east wing. Adrian turned sharply. Who is there? Edmund's lantern flickered. No one, my lord. The piano has not been played since. He hesitated. Since your mother passed. But the melody continued, delicate as the memory of a lullaby. Adrian strode across the hall. Dust swirled beneath his boots as he reached the drawing room door. He pushed it open. The piano stood beneath a sheet, untouched, its keys hidden beneath a veil of age. Yet, as he entered, the final notes quivered through the air and died. Only silence. He lifted the cover. The keys gleamed faintly, though his fingers left trails through the dust. He pressed one, a single note, and the sound rang clear, impossibly so. Then, in the mirror opposite, something moved. He saw, for the briefest instant, the reflection of a woman in white standing behind him. Pale, graceful, eyes downcast. He turned. The room was empty. When he faced the mirror again, the reflection was gone. A chill crept down his spine. "Mother," he whispered, though he scarcely knew why. Edmund appeared in the doorway, face grave. "It is late, my lord. You should rest. Your chambers are as they were." Adrian followed him through corridors that seemed to stretch farther than they should, as though the castle itself shifted in the dark. Shadows lengthened. The walls sighed. The old steward's lantern threw long, wavering shapes along the stone. They stopped before a heavy wooden door carved with the Ravenshade crest. Edmund bowed. "Good night, my lord. May the house treat you kindly." Nearly alone, Adrian entered. The chamber smelled of cedar and long-closed air. Moonlight bled through the curtains, falling upon the familiar shape of a writing desk and a great four-poster bed. On the table beside it rested a small portrait. A woman's face, fair and gentle, with eyes the color of rain. His mother, Eleanor Ravenshade. He reached out and touched the frame. Beneath it lay a broken pearl necklace, one bead missing. He remembered, dimly, the night she died. Her hair damp with fever, her hand cold in his. She had whispered something then, a name, perhaps a warning, but time had blurred the words beyond recall. Outside, the wind rose. It howled through the corridors, rattling the windows like a thing alive. Somewhere, far below, the clock struck again. 3 chimes this time. Slow, heavy, final. Then came another sound. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, moving along the corridor beyond his door. Adrian froze. The steps paused, resumed, drew closer. He reached for the candlestick on his table and moved toward the door. "Edmund?" he called. No answer. Only the faint echo of bare feet upon stone. He opened the door. The hall beyond stretched into darkness, the candlelight reaching only a few paces ahead. The footsteps had stopped, but at the far end of the passage, The door to the cellar, the one his father had always kept locked, stood slightly ajar. A cold draft coiled up from the stairwell, carrying with it the scent of earth and rust and something else. Something metallic. He hesitated only a moment, then stepped forward. The candle flame guttered, bending toward the open door as though drawn by unseen breath. The darkness below waited, deep and patient. Adrian descended slowly, his candle held high against the darkness. The stairway spiraled downward, its steps slick with age, its walls breathing faint drafts of chill air. Each footfall seemed swallowed by the stone, as if the castle listened and approved. The lower he went, the stronger the scent became, that strange blend of damp earth and iron. He paused once, certain he heard a faint sigh just beyond the curve of the stair. The flame quivered. At last, he reached the cellar landing. Before him stretched a corridor lined with old casks and crates, their labels eaten by time. Water dripped rhythmically from the ceiling, the sound like a clock counting out the hours of the dead. The air was colder here. Not the simple cold of stone, but a deeper, older chill that seemed to touch the marrow. At the far end of the corridor, a door stood slightly ajar, a dull light pulsing faintly beyond it. He crossed the distance slowly, his candle barely surviving the drafts. When he pushed the door open, it groaned like a thing disturbed from slumber. The room beyond was vast, circular, and unlike any chamber he remembered. The walls were of smooth marble, veined with black. In its center rose a stone altar, low and wide, its surface marked by strange sigils cut deep into the rock. Upon it lay what seemed at first to be a length of cloth, but when his eyes adjusted, he saw it was a shroud. Beneath it, the faint outline of a human form. His throat tightened. "Father," he whispered. But when he pulled the shroud aside, it was not Edward Ravenshade's face that stared up at him. It was a woman, young, pale, her features perfectly preserved, as if sleep had merely paused her breath. Her hands were folded over her chest, and between them she held a single black pearl that gleamed with its own inner light. Adrian staggered back, the candle nearly slipping from his grasp. Who is she?" From the shadows behind him came a voice, soft yet resonant. "She is what remained." He turned sharply. Edmund stood in the doorway, his lantern dim, his eyes hollow. "My lord," the steward said quietly, "you should not have come down here." Adrian's breath misted in the cold. "Tell me the truth. Who is this woman? Renderne." Edmund's gaze fell to the body. "She was called Lydia Ravenshade, your grandfather's sister. She died more than a century ago." Adrian stared at him. "Impossible. She looks untouched by time." "Yes," Edmund said softly. "That is the nature of our blood. The Ravenshades do not die as others do. They remain tethered." The candlelight trembled between them. "You mean," Adrian said slowly, "they haunt this place." Edmund's lips tightened. The word haunt is too small. The house is not merely haunted, my lord. It is the haunting. Ravenshade was built upon the bones of its own lineage. Every stone remembers. Adrian turned back to the body. The woman's face seemed almost to glow beneath the shroud, the pearl in her hands pulsing faintly, as though with a heartbeat. A whisper brushed the air, so faint he thought it a trick of the wind. Yet he could have sworn it formed his name. Adrian? He stepped back, heart hammering. Did you hear that? Edmund bowed his head. She calls to all who bear the name. You are of her blood. She knows you. The candle flickered out. Darkness swallowed them whole. For a moment, only the dim lantern light of Edmund's hand remained. Then, even that seemed to falter, the shadows deepening as if drawn toward the altar. Adrian's voice was low, unsteady. Why is she kept here? Because, said Edmund, the house cannot bear to let her go, nor she it. They left the cellar in silence, the door closing behind them with the sound of finality. The mist within the corridor seemed thicker now, rising from the cracks in the floor like breath. As they climbed, Adrian felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him, the pressure of memories pressing close. When they reached the main hall again, dawn was beginning to bleed faintly through the stained glass. But even daylight could not banish the sense of living shadow that clung to the walls. Adrian turned to Edmund. There are things you are not telling me. The old man met his gaze with weary patience. There are things I have sworn to protect you from, my lord. From what? Adrian demanded. Edmund's hand trembled upon the lantern. From the inheritance that cannot be refused. He bowed and left without another word. That morning, the castle stood shrouded in a pale fog that did not lift. Adrian wandered its corridors alone, every step stirring echoes that seemed almost to answer him. The air smelled of rain and dust, and something faintly floral, lilac, perhaps, though no flowers grew within miles. He passed the gallery, where portraits of Ravenshades lined the walls. Men and women of proud bearing, their faces uncannily familiar. As he studied them, he noticed something strange. The further back he went in time, the more each face seemed to resemble his own. Near the end of the row hung a portrait unlike the others. The subject was a young woman in white, standing before the castle gates. Her eyes were silver, her smile serene. Beneath the frame, a small plaque read, Lydia Ravenshade, 1715-1741.E. The keeper of the gate. Adrian reached out to touch the plaque and felt warm. He drew back sharply. The metal had pulsed like living flesh. He turned to leave and froze. The eyes in the portrait had changed. They were looking at him. That evening, the storm returned. Rain lashed the windows. The wind howled through the chimneys like distant voices calling names long forgotten. Adrian sat before the fire in the drawing room, staring into the flames, lost in thought. The image of the cellar would not leave him. The woman's perfect stillness, the whisper of his name. Adrian. The sound came again, close, too close. He rose, the hairs on his arms standing rigid. Who's there? From the corner of the room came the faint sound of footsteps, bare and light. Then, a whisper, almost tender. You came home. He turned and saw her. The woman from the portrait. The woman from the altar.